An anti-Trump, pro-choice, moderate Republican. And she just won a hard-fought re-election.
I'm not here to be the representative of the Republican Party. I'm here to be the representative for Alaskan people. This is an opportunity for us as lawmakers to demonstrate that we can be civil with one another.
An imperative is to continue our support for Ukraine. I could not conclude that he is the right person for the court at this time.
No second thoughts.
No second thoughts at all. None.
I support a woman's right to make her own health care decisions, and that means reproductive health care. An individual who, in my view, defied and undermined his oath of office, which is to first and foremost protect and defend the people of this country.
Alaska's Lisa Murkowski has won re-election to the Senate.
When the world is watching democracy face direct assaults from terrorists and from authoritarian regimes, this is the time that the United States must be leading from the front.
Good morning. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Leanne Caldwell. I'm anchor of the Washington Post Early 202, and also, co-author, and then anchor of Washington Post Live. And I'm so thrilled today to have Senator Lisa Murkowski, Republican of Alaska, joining us this morning.
Good to be with you.
Yeah, Senator Murkowski. I want to start actually with your most recent re-election. This was in 2022. I traveled to Alaska last year to cover your fascinating race. You have defied odds time and time again. This past election, you were up against someone who is challenging you from the right, endorsed by Donald Trump, but you once again won. Why do you think that is? Why are you a political survivor in a difficult environment?
I come from a pretty independent state. Mm-hmm. We're conservative. When you look at the map, the political map, Alaska is always painted red. But our reality is that Alaskans look to the individual first. And that has been my identity. I am one who has been there for labor, for Alaska Natives, for independent women, and for the conservative, good old boys that are out there. Maybe not as much in the latter camp, but it really has been just being true to myself, being true to Alaskans, and just standing up for what they have shared to me are their values of real independence. And so we come back here to Washington, D.C., and everything is so clearly defined on partisan and really political lines. I think Alaska is just a little bit different. You look at what we put in place with the initiative. We now have ranked choice voting. We eliminated our primaries. And I think we have set ourselves in a place for other states to model as an example of how in one small way, you just might be able to break down some of these very, very, very partisan barriers that we have put up.
The people you mentioned is a very interesting coalition. You talked about independent women, you talked about Alaska Natives. I've talked to so many Alaska Natives when I was there who were also essential to you winning in 2010. Right. When you lost your primary, mm-hmm. and then you became a write-in candidate. Mm-hmm. Where Alaskans had to spell Murkowski correctly in order for it to count.
True story.
And you did it.
Mm-hmm.
You're also wearing a bracelet. Can you talk to me, because there was a bracelet campaign that began in 2010. What's the significance of that you still wear it today?
So you've named it. In order to survive a write-in, which is an absolutely unprecedented way, really, to gain election to a federal office, there had to be an education campaign that went along with it. So not only did I have to remind all Alaskans why they wanted to return me to the Senate, I also had to educate them on how you properly fill out a write-in ballot. And there was some question as to whether or not incorrect spellings were going to be accepted. And so, because there was a question, there was no question in my mind that we just had to teach everybody how to spell it. It's only 9 letters, you can do this. But we also had to remind people that you can spell it completely correct, but if you haven't filled in the little oval next to the line, it doesn't count. Mm-hmm. And so we had this whole campaign, fill it in, write it in. But then we had to teach you how to spell it. Mm-hmm. So we had these cheap little plastic bracelets that said, fill it in, write it in, and then Lisa Murkowski. And passed out thousands of them. So people were just wearing them all the time. Mm-hmm. And more importantly, they were able to wear them into the polling place when they went to vote. You turn it over. Amazing. So there's no button, there's no nothing. You could have written it on your hand, which a lot of people did. Oh, I saw so many pictures about that. But yeah, the gold bangle that I wear, so my husband took one of those plastic bands, turned it into gold, so it says, fill it in, write it in, Lisa Murkowski. But I wear this, so I've worn this every single day since 2010 as a reminder to me that I was returned to this position by a very diverse group of Alaskans. I was not returned by my party. Mm-hmm. My allegiance, my loyalty, my focus, my bearing is really that very broad, very, some would say eclectic. I think it's just the great smorgasbord of Alaskans. And so being true to them rather than being true to a party is certainly where my comfort zone is. So,
and that was in 2010. Yep. That was the height of the Tea Party movement. Mm-hmm. Since then, we have had Donald Trump and the growth of a populist movement within the Republican Party. And your voting record has reflected your independence. You voted present against Justice Kavanaugh. You voted to save President Obama's Affordable Care Act, and there's a long list of independent votes you've taken. So can you talk about what is the most difficult and challenging part about being this independent voice in the party today, which is a party that is evolving and changing into something different, I should say?
You don't come, or I hope that nobody comes to a place like the United States Senate without a true desire to do right by the people that you represent. And so sometimes when you're kind of in this middle zone, if you will, you think to yourself, am I really able to help in this position? Mm-hmm. I have come to the place where I can say affirmatively yes, because what I end up trying to do then is find others who are also not on the far margins of whether the Republicans or what the Democrats are trying to achieve, but really where you get into a middle, where I think most people in this country are. Mm-hmm. On the issue of abortion, I don't think that most people in America are 100% all the time on one side or on the other, but clearly in a space where, again, we are recognizing that woman's right to choose. And how we ensure that there are reasonable sideboards, I guess, that most people in this country would say, yes, that's that's where it's right. That's where it's right. And so working to find those individuals who, again, are not necessarily part of your party, working partners. I think we've been able to demonstrate this in very specific measures, whether it was the infrastructure bill, whether it was the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. I mean, there are good places where we can land with legislation that, again, are going to be enduring because they're not entirely partisan.
Do you worry that the center of elected officials are leaving politics?
Yes.
You have Mitt Romney.
Yes.
Joe Manchin.
I'm telling you, every single one of them that makes their announcement just makes me sick, because what they bring to the table in terms of a willingness to sit down and try to work through some of these hard things, and then when you work it through, standing up to your party who says that's not good enough, you didn't go far enough, or you went too far. And you have to say, you know, sometimes it's the Goldilocks seat. And that takes a little bit of a political backbone too. So yes, I am very worried. I am very worried that what we are seeing is good people who have gotten discouraged because the process can be so just awful. I don't know of a more technical term than awful.
Yeah.
And so they're leaving. And if the good people leave, when I say good people, the people that are willing to work in the middle, we know what we're going to be left with. It will be those that will be on the extremes of either side, and that doesn't benefit our country.
Moving to a presidential election, it is very likely going to be Donald Trump versus Joe Biden.
Why? Seriously, why? There are so many incredible people in this country, so many who could lead this country, and we get a redo of 2020. I just don't understand why that has to be.
If you are faced with a choice, which you will be, who will you back?
If I am faced with the choice of Biden or Trump, I can definitely tell you that I will not support Donald Trump, and I don't believe that I can support Joe Biden. So where does that put us? Where does that put us?
Yeah.
We have to say that we can do better than this. I know people are so afraid of a third party.
So are you pushing Joe Manchin to run for president as either a third party or in some other capacity?
I think that Joe Manchin would be a great president. I worry, as others have said, and I know because we've had this conversation, I know that he worries that what happens in a third party candidacy, does that throw it to Trump? Does that throw it to Biden? What does it do? I get that. I get that. But you know what? If we take the view in this country that the only way that you can win is if you are the Republican nominee or the Democrat nominee and a third party never, ever, 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 ever has a chance, all right, it's never going to happen. Everybody said, there is no way on God's green earth that you can win a write-in. We did. You know, at some point in time, it's got to be okay to maybe shake up the status quo a little bit. I know that that's probably political heresy.
Do you think Joe Manchin's going to do it?
I don't know. I really, really, really do not know. But we're seeing others step forward and put their name out there. That makes for a lot of splits, and that's where it gets really dicey when you're trying to predict the outcome of an election.
I want to ask you about women in the Senate.
Yeah.
There's I think it's a record this year or last year, number of women in the Senate. I know you're close with Senator Susan Collins. Can you talk about, as the number of women in the Senate has grown, Have the women been able to maintain some sort of close relationship? I know everything's partisan, but even is there some post-partisanship in those relationships?
Yeah. I think that there is. We do somewhat regular gatherings where one of the women will host a dinner, whether it's at the Capitol or at a restaurant or occasionally at somebody's home. There's different gatherings, again, that we try to come together as the women of the Senate. And the thing that's so refreshing and just so good is there's no agenda, and there's no staff. And as Barbara Murkowski would say, there's no notes. We just gather together and enjoy one another's company. And I think that is important. It's good for the soul. We all have hard jobs. It's good to be able to just kind of come together and sometimes just complain about some of the people that you work with or the process.
All the men?
Yeah, you said that, not me. But yeah, I think that things like that are important because you're building relationships. And when you have a relationship with a person, it's a lot harder to condemn them, to try to just be nasty publicly. Relationships are important, and it doesn't make any difference what level of governance you're in.
The House of Representatives is going to vote today on a stopgap funding bill to extend government funding past Friday. Parts of it until January, parts of it until February. The Senate's probably going to take it up if it passes. So how will you vote? Do you think this is a good idea, and what are your concerns?
I don't think it's a good idea to have the dates separated based on which appropriations account you are in. I'm concerned about the length of time that this initiative gives. I am in the camp of wanting a short-term clean CR soon. I like the idea of December 8th. It forces us to get to work now, actually yesterday, to resolve the very complicated and very serious and very timely issues that we're seeing in Israel, in Ukraine. We've got border that we have to deal with.
Do you worry that Ukraine aid is not going to pass?
I am greatly worried that we're going to take the focus off or allow the focus to be taken off of a very, very critical time in Ukraine. We're approaching winter over there. It's going to get tough. If Putin sees that the United States is kind of relaxed on our support here, what's to say that he doesn't just put his foot on the gas and really, really go aggressively against Ukraine during these months? Support for Ukraine, in my view, is absolutely unequivocal. So I'm very worried about this. I don't want us to have a shutdown. There is no value. Nobody wins in a shutdown. So at least we're all in agreement that we don't want to shut down. So, okay, we've got something in common. But I am concerned about the length of time for this CR, that it takes the pressure off, and in that interim, support for Ukraine continues to erode.
I want to, we're almost out of time, so I do want to ask you about your father, who held the seat before you. What political lessons did you learn from him, or more importantly, would he be surprised with the politician you are today, or the person you are today as an elected member of the Senate?
Well, we have very different approaches, very, very different styles. He's kind of a grumbly bear, and I figure I am able to get my way into most conversations by not being a grumbly bear. But he has shared that he is very proud of my independence. He's very passionate about Alaska issues, and I certainly share that same passion, and that has manifested itself, I think, in the support that I've received around the state. But every now and again, he'll make some kind of a comment about, well, I wouldn't have done it that way, but you're doing okay. So at 90 years old, he's got a lot of time to reflect, and it is a different style, most definitely, but we're doing okay.
So we are out of time, but I have to ask you, Mitt Romney eats your Alaska salmon with ketchup.
Can you believe it? Oh my gosh. Like the best wild seafood in the world.
Which it is, yes.
It is, and he puts it on a bun with ketchup. I really love Mitt Romney, I do. But I do question his eating style. But
will you stop giving him Alaska salmon?
no. What I will do is I will make sure that I've cooked it for him ahead of time so that it's beautifully prepared as it should be, and he won't have to put ketchup on it.
Senator Murkowski, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Good to be back with you.
Yes.